So welcome everybody. This is our third class from the original Egoscue Method of Health through Motion book from 1992. And in today's class, we are going to be looking at a condition 3 posture, which means a posterior pelvic tilt. So I actually thought it might make more sense if I can find it to just quickly show you the image of a posterior pelvic tilt condition 3 posture from the book itself. I'll just hold it up to the screen and you can kind of see what we're looking at here. So a posterior pelvic tilt is when the front of the pelvis is higher than the back of the pelvis. And with that comes a bunch of different compensations around it. The spine has to be a kind of C shape, very flat in the lower back, rounded in the upper back. The head has to sit forwards, the shoulder has to sit forwards, and often the knees are either stuck in flexion or a little bit hyperextended. So what we're going to be working on today is restoring that S-shaped curve back to the spine through predominantly hip, glute, pelvic area strengthening exercises. But there is a whole body focus, as with all of Pete Egoscue's routines. In terms of equipment, I've got a dining room chair. The dining room chair is for standing quad stretch. So we did that before, but we kind of put our leg up over a chair and those work quite well. I've got a couple of cushions because I always have a few cushions to hand. I've got my yoga block, but that could be a cushion folded in two if you don't have one. And I've also got my two small Posture Ellie cork rolls. If you don't have those, I need you to grab for me 2 blankets or towels that you roll up into 2 rolls. One's going to go underneath your neck and one's going to go underneath your lower back. And you'll also need a bit of wall space. There are 11 exercises in this routine, but we are only going to do 9 of them due to time. I'm hoping that we won't overrun, but please do bear with me if we do overrun slightly, just because I'm not in control of how many exercises are in these routines. And other than that, I think we should get started. So we're going to stand up and we are going to do our standing assessment to begin with, just like we do pretty much all of the time. So you're going to shake off any tension in your body. You're going to relax your hands, relax your arms, relax your shoulders, relax your belly. You're not pulling yourself into what you might perceive to be a good standing posture. You're just allowing your body to kind of rest where it wants to rest and seeing where you end up. And this is a reflection of your natural posture rather than an artificial or forced one. And whilst you're here, I just want you to do a bit of a mental check-in as to whether or not you feel any pain in your body, where that pain is and what level the pain is. If you feel any tension in your body, so where that tension is and what kind of level it might be. And lastly, I want you to get a sense of whether or not you have an even weight distribution through both of your feet, but also how your feet are kind of interacting with the ground. So do your arches feel collapsed, or do you feel like all of your weight is on the outside edge of your foot with your big toes lifting? Do you feel like you've got one sort of more weight on the front of one foot and the back of the other? And likewise with your arms and your shoulders as well. So do you get a sense that they are doing something different from side to side? Hopefully by the end of today's routine, that's all going to feel a little bit different and hopefully in a positive way. But if it feels worse, you just know that this routine is not for you. I was going to come and move the camera, but I'm not going to. So just like with all of the other ones that we've done so far, we are going to be starting this routine with standing arm circles. So you can do standing arm circles with parallel feet, which means that you're probably going to feel a little bit more pigeon-toed in your feet than you think you should be. We don't want you measuring a straight line with your feet by you measuring your big toe joints. So you're twisting your feet in, so the middle of your second and your third toes are in alignment with the front of the ankles. You're going to raise your arms up to the sides like this, staying where you are, but I'm going to come to the camera so you can see me a bit closer. My hands are in golfer's grip, so I'm straight up until that first knuckle, and the rest of my fingers are tucked into my hands. I'm pulling those thumbs firmly back, so I feel a stretch through that bit there. As my arms draw upwards, my shoulders do not draw upwards. So I'm pulling my shoulder blades back and down whilst lifting my arms up. As I pull my shoulder blades back and down, I'm making sure that I'm not lifting my rib cage up to the sky. So the rib cage moves down. It is the shoulders that are moving, not your spine. Off we go, forward circles, a minute here. So we're keeping the elbows locked. We're keeping the wrists locked. We're keeping the fingers really nice and firm. We're pulling back through the thumb so it stays nice and active. I'm rotating my upper arm around my shoulder girdle rather than keeping my upper arm still and bending my wrists or twisting my elbows. I'm also making sure that I'm relaxing my face. I'm breathing in and out of my nose. I'm relaxing my belly. My head is not pecking forwards and backwards like a chicken, and my rib cage is not lifting up and down. So if your shoulders and your arms do not move very well, you will likely peck your head or lift your rib cage, or you'll bend your wrists or your elbows. In 5 seconds time, I'll have a quick break. 3, 2, and 1. Relax those arms down briefly. We're going to do exactly the same thing, but this time from our upper arm, we're going to twist the arm backwards so that the whole arm is facing behind you. I don't want it to be that you just twist your wrists. So you're really trying to get that backwards movement from the arm. You plug those shoulders back and down behind you once again. Backward circles, 1 minute, off we go. So we're moving the arms, the humerus, the upper arm, in external rotation here. The shoulder blades are sort of moving backwards with the motion and moving away from the ears, really trying to keep them away from the ears. The rib cage oscillates a little bit, but it doesn't lift up and down to drive the movements. The head does not peck backwards and forwards because that would be the neck compensating. We are really trying to restore rotation back to our shoulder girdle. And by restoring rotation back to our shoulder girdle, we're going to reposition our shoulder blades further back and down behind us, get rid of some rotation through our rib cage, lift and engage our rib cage, wake up muscles along our back. All sorts of good things will happen here. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. The next exercise is also one that was in the other routines as well. And this is cats and dogs, or as Egoscue calls it, cat-cows. Egoscue calls it cats and dogs. I don't know why. So we're going to come to our all fours position. If being on an all fours position causes you any wrist pain or knee pain, please get on your back and do pelvic tilts instead. My knees are underneath my hips, and my toes, my ankles, and my knees and my hips are also in alignment. So I don't want the feet wider. I'm pointing my feet so that the tops of my shins and the tops of my feet are heading towards the ground. This is opening my ankle up into a range of movement called plantar flexion. And by plantar flexing your feet, not only will you get them working, which might mean that you get cramp whilst you're doing this, but it's also going to help your pelvis move better. My wrists are directly underneath my shoulders. My fingers are spread wide, and my fingers are really kind of straight and firm. So the thing that you might notice is that you're doming through the palms of your hands, or that your thumbs are bent, and I want them to be as straight as they can be, and I want you planted through your palms. Leading from your pelvis, you're going to roll the pelvis forwards into an anterior pelvic tilt. That's going to wake up the back muscles, the spinal erectors. And then vertebrae by vertebrae, you're going to sink into your spine so that you kind of collapse into your shoulder blades. The shoulder blades touch behind you and pull away from the ears. And then you just gently look up whilst also driving the shoulder blades away from the ears and rolling that pelvis forwards. Then the other way, you're going to squeeze your glutes, tuck the pelvis under, and vertebrae by vertebrae, you're rolling through your whole spine and tucking your head and shoulders in completely the opposite range of movement. I'm setting my timer here, 2 minutes. Go really nice and slowly here, so really feel into this. You're not looking to rush. You're never, ever looking to rush in posture. You're looking to sense for movements that you're not very good at and maybe feel a bit clunky in, and you're asking your body to perform these movements more. So if you rush, what you'll be likely to do is compensate and also avoid the parts of your spine that need mobilizing the most. So I want you to really picture each vertebrae and how you can potentially getting it moving a little bit differently. You're going to keep breathing. We're not pulling any faces. And something that's really important in a cat-cow is that you're not thrusting your torso forwards and backwards. So when I say drive your pelvis forwards, what I really mean is imagine your pelvis is a bowl of water and the water is tilting out of the front. And then you're tucking your pelvis backwards, tucking it under, which means that you're almost trying to get the water kind of coming out of the back of your bowl of water. We are not moving our torso forwards and backwards, because if you do that, you're not moving your hips and your pelvis and your spine. You're compensating using your kind of arms and your shoulders and the muscles through your legs. Got about 30 seconds left here. The hips stay above the knees throughout. The shoulders stay above the wrists throughout. Your elbows stay straight throughout. Your fingers stay straight throughout. We're really trying to create this ripple effect of movement throughout the spine to restore movement back to the spine, to get rid of kinks out of the spine, to get rid of imbalance in the rib cage and in the shoulders and in the pelvis and in the hips. This is really a whole body exercise, especially if you're thinking about your hands, your palms, your thumbs, and your feet as well. Okay, so next up, we are coming on to towel sequence. And for those of you who have done the sciatica sequence before, it's quite similar to the sciatica sequence, but I think that this is an earlier iteration of it and it is slightly different. So you're going to need your 2 small rolled up towels, or sorry, your 2 small cork posture rolls or rolled up towels. And you're going to put one just above your pelvis at the very bottom of your lower back. So you're not putting that lower roll below your rib cage, because what that's going to do is to tilt you into a rib cage flare rather than focus on the tilt of your pelvis. And then you're going to put the other one somewhere at the base of your neck where it maybe feels like a little bit uncomfortable and maybe a little bit knobbly and bony. And what that's telling you is it's challenging a part of your spine at the top where you have like rotation and maybe a bit of scoliosis going on. And so the more kind of uncomfortable you can find the upper bit of your back, I don't mean painful, but I mean just a bit like bobbly, knobbly, you're probably onto something in that you're going to reshape your vertebrae a little bit better. Off we go, and I'm going to talk through some more instructions whilst we're here. So I've got my toes, my ankles, my knees, and my hips in alignment. So my toes are not wider than my ankles, and my knees are not falling in nor falling out. I have my knees bent and my feet flat to the floor. I have my small cork posture roll in the very, very bottom of my spine, just above my pelvis. And what that is doing is it's creating more grounding through the coccyx, the kind of tailbone end of my pelvis, and the upper part of my pelvis is lifted up off the floor into more of an anterior pelvic tilt. So this position is really good for people with a posterior pelvic tilt because it's asking the pelvis to move into a more anterior position, a more engaged position, and this is going to give us more access to more muscles around our hips and pelvis. if it feels too extreme. So if you are posterior, asking your body to go anterior like this might feel really intense. If you can still breathe through it, and if you still feel okay, then absolutely feel free to kind of carry on doing it. But if it feels too intense, you can make the towels, if you rolled up towels, make them a little bit less wide. And if you're using the small court posture rolls and they still just feel too big, get some towels and roll them so that they are about the same size as the small court posture rolls, but because they're not so hard, it won't reshape your spine quite so like aggressively. So you can kind of move towards the posture rolls if you need to. I've got my arms out to the side at about 45 degrees. My sort of upper arm, my elbow armpits are facing up towards the ceiling. Palms of the hands sort of facing up towards the ceiling just to help open up the shoulders. And all we are doing here is lying in this position for another 3 minutes. So we're doing 5 minutes in total. Nowadays, we would call this exercise towel settle, but in the book, it's called static back with towels. So as I said, they've sort of slightly changed the names of a few of the exercises over the years. We're relaxing our face. We're breathing in and out of our nose, trying to get the bottom of the rib cage moving with both the inhale and the exhale. We're keeping weight through our big toe joints throughout. So just make sure that you're not lifting your big toe joints off the floor and putting the weight onto the outside edge of your feet. But conversely, make sure you're not collapsing inwards at the knees with all of your weight on the inside edge of your feet. The inside and outside edges of your feet should be in contact with the ground, and your knees should be in alignment with your hips. And if someone was looking down your body, then they would see that you have toes, ankles, knees, and hips in alignment. We're just breathing here, and we're just letting time and gravity start to adjust the position of your pelvis. So even if you're not posterior, this exercise can be excellent for a condition 2 posture. So somebody who has pelvic imbalance. And just so you know, I firmly believe that everybody has pelvic imbalance. So if you have an imbalanced pelvis, having the roll or the towel underneath your lower back like this can really help just to gently shift the lumbar vertebrae out of a rotated position, and it puts the pelvis into a more balanced position. But even if you're anterior, this can be a really productive position for you as well, because it can actually really help your lower back to relax down and kind of give up holding itself in a tense position. So having the support of the roll can help anterior people relax onto the roll a little bit more. And of course, as with any posture exercise that we ever do, if a exercise aggravates normal symptoms of pain and tension for you, you don't do the exercise. In this sequence that we're going to do, it may be that you can continue with one or none of the rolls or towels under your back. You might be fine without them to carry on, but you need to make sure you stop any exercises that aggravate your symptoms of pain. It's not for you. We've got 10 seconds left here, but we're staying in this position for a while. So we've got 3, 2, and 1. So that was 5 minutes in what they used to call static back with towels, but we now call towel settle. And for the next exercise, we're staying where we are, but we're grabbing our yoga block and we're going to put it in between our knees the medium way. If you want to, you can fold a cushion in half if you don't have a yoga block, but sometimes folding a cushion in half gives you a little bit of a response through your legs. So it's just kind of what works best for you. And I would encourage you to experiment with both of these things. Toes, ankles, knees, and hips are in alignment. So really making sure that the toes don't move out to the side. You're keeping that connection. So your coccyx, your tailbone is touching the floor, but the upper portion of your pelvis is not going to touch the floor because it's going to be underneath the roll. The exercise that we're about to do, we are going to squeeze in with our knees, hold, and release. Squeeze, hold, release. Squeeze, hold, release. And as we do this movement, we're making sure that we're not rocking our pelvis forwards and backwards. So we're not gripping with our abdominals, and we're not smushing our lower back into the floor and lifting our pelvis off the floor. Your pelvis is staying totally still. Your abdominals are staying completely relaxed, and your lower back is going to be off the floor because of having the roll on it. So you're not rocking the pelvis forwards and backwards, which is a really common compensation in this exercise. 3 minutes here, off we go. So I'm squeezing in with my thighs onto the block, hold and release. Squeeze, hold, release. Once again, both sides of my feet are staying evenly on the ground. So I'm not putting more weight in my big toe joints or more weight in my fifth toe joints. My weight distribution stays even through both of my feet and across the sort of sides of both of my feet. My pelvis is not moving here. This is an inner hip exercise, not a pelvic exercise. So inner thigh exercise, but also a hip exercise too. So we're waking up our muscles called our adductors, and they are muscles that kind of span from the inside edge of your knee into your pelvic girdle. So by waking these guys up, you might be feeling them wobble, you might be feeling them shake a bit, you might be feeling them burn. That's all good stuff. That just means that they're switching on. But the stronger that these guys get, the more balanced and the more functional they become, the more engaged your pelvis is going to be, but also the more balanced your pelvis is going to be as well. So once again, it doesn't matter if you don't consider yourself to be posterior, doing exercises like this can still really help you, because most people have a pelvic balance problem, as well as a kind of pelvic tilt problem. Notice here that my pelvis isn't moving, my rib cage isn't moving. There's no movement in my body other than the fact that my knees are moving inwards slightly, and this is waking up these inner thigh muscles. I'm breathing in and out of my nose. I'm relaxing my face. I'm unfurrowing my brow. I'm relaxing my belly, and I'm just teaching my adductors to switch on without there being any compensation. If you're not strong in your adductors, then you will likely use pelvic movement to cheat here. And you may also use kind of pelvic floor compensation as well, which is quite common. Just feeling that weight through your feet stay the same throughout. All that is moving is that your knees and your thighs are moving inwards. We've got just over 20 seconds left, and we're still staying in the same position. Squeeze, hold, release. Keep that coccyx on the floor so that you're definitely not moving your pelvis forwards and backwards. And that's time. So we're going to pop the block to one side. We're still staying in our hook lying position here, and we're going to do glute contractions. So it's toes, ankles, knees, and hips are in alignment. Again, keeping the soles of the feet evenly down on the floor. We don't want your knees wobbling inwards and outwards. We don't want the pelvis rocking forwards and backwards. What you are going to do is use your brain to squeeze your butt muscles, hold, and release. So you're squeezing your butt muscles, using your brain, holding and releasing. Off we go, 3 minutes here. So very commonly, people are stuck in a compensation pattern where they can't switch on their glutes without rolling their pelvis backwards more posteriorly, and that we're stopping you from doing that by using the towels. So the towels are keeping your pelvis driving forwards anteriorly. So we can't rely on the pelvis to cheat for us. We're having to actually wake these muscles up without there being a rocking motion there. And you'll also find that people will squeeze their abdominals because they've lost sight of what their glute muscles feel like. So lots of people here will be squeezing their belly, and lots of people here will be squeezing their pelvic floor or their bum hole. So again, if you don't have the function in your big glute muscles, which so many of us don't, me included, you might notice that you use muscles that are deeper, your pelvic floor muscles, to compensate for a lack of glute function. The way you will know if your glutes are waking up is because you will literally feel them if you put your hands on your bottom. So if you put your hands on your bottom, you should be able to feel the contraction you are asking for underneath your fingers. And if you don't feel the contraction that you're asking for underneath your fingers, you're probably compensating with your abdominals or your pelvic floor. Like I said, hopefully the rolls are really helping you stay still to stop you from swinging that pelvis forwards and backwards in order to compensate as well. So we're building strength into an engaged pelvic position by waking up the kind of inner thighs and waking up the glutes as well. Relaxing the face, keeping that calm nasal diaphragmatic breathing going. The belly stays relaxed. The whole body is completely still. There's no rocking of anything, but we are just squeezing those glutes, and you're kind of sensing into differences from side to side. So you might notice that one glute feels like it responds more easily than the other. You might be laying there thinking, how on earth do I switch on either of my glutes? Which is a perfectly common response to this exercise. Please don't beat yourself up if you're not feeling them. You're just learning things about your body. So currently your glutes are not functional. And maybe if they become more functional, other things will start hurting less. And it could be that they do just start to switch on with a little bit more time and a little bit more practice of this routine. But it could also be that there are other exercises that will suit you to do first before you start getting that connection again with your glutes. And that is time. So we're going to stay on our rolls if we can, because we're trying to really reshape the pelvis, reshape the spine, reshape the rib cage, reshape the shoulders. But if it's too intense or if you have any pain, then absolutely move them out of the way. From here, we are going to do isolated hip flexor lifts. So we are going to keep the ball of our left foot and toes on the floor, and we're going to lift the ankle as if we are wearing a high-heeled shoe on that left-hand side. So I've already got cramp in my calf, which is a good thing, which you might get too. But by asking that foot to plantar flex like we are, we're asking the calf to wake up. So you might get a calf cramp if that is the case. I am not allowing that left foot to come down to the floor. I'm keeping it high, but I'm keeping the ball of the foot on the floor. And I'm making sure that my left knee doesn't fall into the midline of my body. With my other leg, without kicking the foot forwards, I'm going to imagine that I'm fishing my right knee out of water. So I'm lifting my right knee towards my body about 2 or 3 inches, and then I'm placing the foot back down on the floor in between that movement. So it's a very minimal moving up and down of my right knee. And as I do that, I need you to challenge the same things that we were challenging in that last exercise. There's no pelvic movement here. So I'm not smushing my lower back and my pelvis down and contracting my abdominals. I'm keeping the abdominals nice and relaxed. I've got an arch in my lower back. My pelvis is still. What I am doing is I am reducing the angle at my hip. I'm not reducing the angle through my abdominals, which is a common compensation. 2 minutes here, off we go. So that left ankle stays high, but the left toes and the ball of the foot are firmly grounded, including the big toe joints. Toes, ankles, knees, and hips on both legs stay in alignment, so the knees don't fall in or fall out. Likewise with ankles. On my right leg, I'm not thinking about how high I'm drawing that knee, because if I focus too much on lifting my knee high, what I will do is be much more likely to move into tucking my pelvis posteriorly and flattening my lower back territory. I'm looking to keep that pelvis propped forward anteriorly. So I'm closing up the front of my hip, not contracting my belly. We are looking for hip flexion here, not spinal flexion. And hopefully the more that you do it, you're going to feel this just become more and more concentrated in a small circular area where your femur meets your pelvis. So if your quads have learned to compensate on behalf of weak hip flexors, you might be feeling your quads here. You might be feeling your abdominals, but those are the two main places. And hopefully just the more that you do it, and the more that you really focus on rolling that pelvis forwards to maintain the arch in your lower back, you're going to notice that it happens at your hip. Slow it down, reduce the range of movement if you're not feeling the hip flexor. Relax your face and your breathing. All we are doing here is waking up that one hip and waking up the calf on the other leg. Foot touches the ground in between each rep, and just make sure you're not kicking your foot forwards, you're lifting your knee up. 3, 2, and 1. So exactly the same thing on the other leg. Toes, ankles, knees, and hips are in alignment. The ball of my right foot stays down, the toes stay down. I lift up my right ankle as if I'm wearing a high-heeled shoe, getting that cramp again, shaking it off, bringing it back, and then lifting that left knee. Off we go. So the left knee is moving towards my body. I'm not kicking my left foot forwards. The foot touches the ground in between each rep. I'm maintaining my breath. I'm relaxing my belly. I'm not pulling any weird faces or clamping up my fists. My pelvis is not rolling forwards and backwards. I am working on hip flexion, which means closing up the angle between the femur and the pelvis. If your hip flexors don't work very well, you will try and recruit spinal flexion, which means flattening of the lower back, contraction of the abs and the pelvic floor and the quads to draw the leg towards your body. And that's not what we want. So we want the pelvis rolling forwards anteriorly. We want the spine, the lower back into a little bit of extension. So you might feel your lower back, but it doesn't mean that it's pain. It might be pain, but it doesn't mean that it is pain. Your lower back is going to work here just because of what we're asking for from your hips. And we really want the front of that hip joint to start burning. And hopefully the more that you do it, you're going to notice that it creeps away from your quads and it really starts to concentrate in that bit where the femur meets the pelvis. If you very much struggle to feel your hip flexors waking up in this one, my best advice is to replace this version of it with sitting isolated hip flexors. So you can find that within the Posture Squad exercise walkthrough. So if you just search it in the search bar at the top, you'll see a walkthrough for that. And that would be my suggested modification for this one. It can really help people who've completely lost control of their hip flexors to find them again. 3, 2, and 1. So just take a little tiny break here for a minute. I'm going to explain a few things. In the book, at this point, Pete Egoscue has put in supine groin stretch with towels. So it's happened in the other routines, but we're not doing them because it would take like an extra half an hour and we don't have time in the live classes. But if you've got the time, pause the video now if you're watching this at home. Keep your towels in place and then get yourself set up for supine groin stretch. I'll put the information in the video blurb below. So I would do 15 minutes on one leg and then 15 minutes on the other leg. And then what Pete Egoscue wants you to do is supine groin stretch, but without the towels. So within this posterior pelvic tilt routine, there are 2 rounds of supine groin stretch. First, one with the towels like you're doing already. And then secondly, another round of at least 15 minutes per leg without the towels. So we're not doing them today, but I'm going to put them in the information for you so that you know what it is that you're doing if you want to do the routine in its entirety. We're going to just give ourselves a moment to recover without the towels being underneath our lower back. So you're going to pull them out of the way. You're just going to come back to your kind of normal hook lying position here. Just get any sense of your pelvis feeling like it maybe feels like it's sinking into the ground. Maybe your spine feels a bit more balanced. But just give yourself a few moments because you can feel a little bit like winded and it can feel a bit intense as you come out of it. And the good/bad news, depending on how you want to look at it, is we're not doing the towels anymore, but we are back to our foot circles. So I'm going to explain it because we've always got new people joining, but sorry for those of you who have heard this a million times. We're going to take our legs long. I've got a cushion underneath my head just because it helps me to keep the back of my neck long and it helps me to keep my shoulder blades on the floor, which I like. My legs are long in front of me, my feet are pulling back and my ankles are staying on the floor. So I don't want it to be that your ankles lift up off the floor because if you're doing that, you're hyperextending your knees and that means that you bypass the hip extension that we're going after. Achilles heel stays on the floor of your right leg. You're going to lift up your left leg like this. The shin is parallel with the floor. Don't let it droop. Don't let it go too high. And for both of your legs, you're trying to keep them in alignment with your hips. Keeping your shin still, keeping your knee still, we're going to turn outward circles through that left foot. Off we go. A minute here. So I have my hands underneath my left thigh. I'm trying my hardest to keep my shin totally still, to keep my left knee totally still, and I'm encouraging the movement to happen at my ankle, my midfoot, and my toes. I'm moving really nice and slowly here because people will try and use speed to avoid function in this one especially. My right foot stays dorsiflex, so I'm really pulling my right foot back towards me, keeping that right ankle on the floor, keeping that right calf on the floor, and that's going to stretch out the front of my right hip. I'm relaxing my face. I'm relaxing my belly. I'm maintaining a calm nasal diaphragmatic breath. My shin stays still. My knee stays still. 3, 2, 1, change of direction. So same foot, different direction, pointing the toes as the foot moves away from me, flexing the toes as the foot moves towards me, trying to keep on both legs, toes, ankles, knees, and hips in alignment. Obviously the toes are moving around a bit, but hopefully you know what I mean. The biggest thing here is that your knee on the raised leg is going to drift in and that your toes on your straight leg are maybe going to start getting a bit floppy and drifting out. So really keep that leg that's on the floor super active. I want you to feel it burn through the front of your shin because you're maintaining the dorsiflexion position. 10 seconds left here. We're still going to be staying on the same leg, but going backwards and forwards, points and flex. 3, 2, 1. Flex and points like a ballerina. So I'm keeping the back of my neck long. I'm maintaining that calm breath. My right leg stays active. My shin and my knee stay still on that left-hand side. I'm pivoting my ankle joint forwards and backwards without lifting the ankle up and down or wiggling the knee about. Keep breathing. You could always take a break if you need. I'd rather you take a break and carry on breathing in a calm, nasal, diaphragmatic way than to just blast through, holding your breath, pulling faces, going veiny and red. None of those things are teaching your nervous system that you're safe. They're just teaching your nervous system that it can't really trust you to do the right thing by it. 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so we're swapping and we're going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. So my left leg is down on the floor now, pulling those feet back towards me, keeping that ankle on the floor. I'm feeling the burn on that front of my left shin already because of what I've just been doing. Keeping that right shin parallel to the floor, outward circles, 1 minute, off we go. So I'm holding my hands underneath my thighs, keeping that right shin, right knee still, pulling backwards through the front of my left leg to feel the shin work, keeping the back of my neck long, my shoulders are relaxed, I'm not hoiking around with my leg, with my arms. Breathing nice and calmly, keeping both legs in alignment with the hip, trying to get as much movement as possible through the toes as we do this circular movement to restore function back to our feet and our ankles. Just over 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Same foot, different direction. So really trying to keep the shin totally still, trying to keep the upper leg, the knee totally still, trying to keep that left leg burning away as you continue to work the dorsiflexion of your left leg. You'll know if you're dorsiflexing because you'll feel your shin burning. Relaxing your belly, relaxing your face, relaxing your jaw. Breathing in and out of the nose and into the diaphragm. Feeling that lovely burn around your feet, which is telling you that you need to work your feet more. You need to think about exercising them just like you would any other part of your body. And the stronger that your foundations become, the more stable your foundations become, the more balanced your foundations become, and the more powerful your foundations become, it is going to change your entire experience of your body. And final minute here, point and flex. So same foot, but moving it forwards and backwards into plantar flexion and dorsiflexion. Not forgetting about the dorsiflexion on your left leg as you pull that foot back towards you. Hopefully feeling the shin burn as it strengthens. The ankle's not moving up and down here. The shin stays parallel with the floor. The knees don't collapse in or out. Back of the neck stays long. Face stays calm. Breathe in and out of the nose and into your belly. Teaching yourself that you are safe, even though parts of you are working really hard. That is one of the main things about posture. We're teaching safety, but also hard work. 3, 2, and 1. Great job. Final 2 exercises, and we're only going to run a tiny bit over actually, which is pretty good. Oh no, I say that, we're a little bit over. We are going to do a version of Airbench that is nowhere to be found in more modern Egoscue books. So very exciting. This is called Under Airbench. So let me just describe this to you because it's highly unlikely you'll have done this before, just because it doesn't show up anymore. But we've got our normal Airbench, which is like this. And for normal Airbench, which we've done in the other routines from the book, my instructions are very much that you push into your feet so that you're pushing into your pelvis and your lower back. And we actually, if anything, we're like actively a little bit rounded in our upper back to make sure that we're not compensating with our upper back. This is the opposite. So it looks the same, but we are actually going to focus on our hands, our arms, our shoulders, and our upper back more. So we come down like this, but rather than focusing too much on our feet pushing in and our pelvis pushing back, it's palms facing down, not palms facing up. What we're going to do is have our arms out to the side at 45 degrees. We're going to spread our fingers wide and have the palms of the hands against the wall. And then what we're going to try and do is move our shoulder blades behind us so that they're not rounded away from the wall. And we're going to keep the back of our head against the wall, tucking our chin in so that we're not lifting our chin up and hyperextending our neck. So you're actively pushing your head against the wall, keeping that chin tucked. You're pushing into the wall with your hands, your arms, your shoulders, your upper back, your middle back, and then if you can, also your lower back and your pelvis as well. So don't think so much about the feet upwards here. You're thinking about almost the head downwards. We're going to do 2 minutes. Off we go. This is under Airbench, which is actually one that I really love. I don't quite understand why it's nowhere to be found anymore, but there we go. So the bottom of my rib cage is at the wall. I haven't lifted my rib cage up here. My shoulder blades are really moving backwards, pushing into the wall. The back of my head pushes into the wall, but I keep my chin tucked so I don't hyperextend my neck. The backs of my upper arms push backwards. My forearms push backwards. My fingers are spread and active. The palms push backwards. Yes, my thighs are working and doing things, but I'm almost so distracted by how much else is going on in my upper body. You can slide up the wall and take a break whenever you fancy, and then come back down when you're ready. If your knees hurt, I recommend taking your feet a bit further away from the wall than they are at the moment, or maybe taking your pelvis up a little bit higher. Pushing actively backwards through spread fingers, active palms, rigid lower arms, rigid upper arms. Shoulder blades are moving behind you. The upper back and the mid back push into the wall. The lower back and the pelvis push into the wall if they can. The head pushes into the wall with the chin tucked. Keep breathing, relax your face, in and out of the nose and into the belly. 20 seconds left here. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Well done, everybody. And our final exercise, somewhat confusingly, goes against the grain of our Egoscue training, and we finish with standing quad stretch. So when we get trained, we get told that we should never finish on a unilateral exercise, which means one side at a time. And for some reason in this routine, that's exactly what he does. So I do not know why. So we did this before, but toes, ankles, knees, and hips are in alignment. And we've got our chair behind us that we're going to put our leg up like this. And we need to set up our chair so that our knee on the bent leg is in alignment with the straight leg. So it's like this, rather than having that knee too far forwards or having the knee too far backwards. Toes, ankles, knees, and hips in alignment. Obviously, one knee is bent, but you're still having that alignment through both of your legs. You're trying to keep your hips balanced with one another. You're trying to keep your knees balanced with one another. You're going to point your left foot if you're doing the same one as me. Push the top of your left foot down into the chair, and you're going to slightly tuck the pelvis here so that you feel a stretch through the front of the quad and through the front of the hip. Off we go. We're going to do a minute here. Trying to make sure that you're not massively overloading your right leg. So yes, your right leg is your standing leg right now, but we want your left leg to be kind of pushing down into the chair so that you're getting that stretch through the front of the hip. Every now and then, have a look down at your legs and try and keep your kneecaps in alignment. Try and keep your hip bones in alignment, and make sure that your standing foot doesn't adjust itself. So you might try and move your toes out wide in order to compensate. I'm tucking my pelvis under here while simultaneously pushing down through the front of my left foot. It helps me to activate that leg. It wakes up the hamstring and the glutes and the quads on that left leg, but it also stretches the front of the hip. So it's a really good hip stabilization exercise as well as a hip stretch exercise. And that's time. So I'm putting my feet back down, toes, ankles, knees, and hips before I do anything else in alignment. more parallel and more narrow than most people think. Bending my right knee, putting that right foot on my chair, keeping my kneecaps in alignment with one another and keeping my hips in alignment with one another. Also trying not to make sure that one hip's higher than the other. So you might be kind of sinking into one hip and hiking your pelvis. Try and keep the pelvis balanced. It will feel a lot more active when you are balanced at your pelvis. Off we go. So I'm squeezing my right foot so that I'm trying to get cramp in the arch of it. I'm simultaneously squeezing the foot but pushing down through the front of my right foot, which helps me to connect to the right pelvis. I'm tucking my right pelvis under. As I do that, it kind of fires up the hamstrings, the glutes, and the quads on that right-hand side. My left leg is doing a little bit of work just because I'm standing on it, but I'm not overloading my standing leg. I'm really trying to keep that weight distribution even through both of them and not avoid the leg that I am trying to stretch the hip off. Relax my face, relax my belly, breathe in and out of the nose. Keep trying to tuck the pelvis under, use your right foot to help you. So squeeze the right foot to get cramp in the arch of it, push down at the top of the right foot to help you tuck your pelvis. And that is time. And we will finish there, but we will do our standing assessment as ever. So we did it at the beginning, we're going to do it again now, and we're going to evaluate to see how impactful this routine was for us, either positively or negatively. So shaking off tension and just tuning into your body again. So remembering how you felt at the beginning. Has that pain that you had then changed for better, for worse? Has your tension changed for better, for worse? If for better, this is absolutely a routine that you need to do lots and lots of. And if worse, ask yourself if there was maybe like one or two exercises that perhaps didn't suit you, because most of the time it's not all of the exercises, it's just one or two that don't suit people. So see if you can think back as to maybe what your body was asking you to stop, but maybe that you carried on doing. And also just get a sense of like where your weight distribution is through your feet, where your hands and your arms feel like they are, and just a sense maybe if you feel more upright and more balanced. And hopefully you do, but please don't beat yourself up if you don't. It's just not the routine for you. So that is the end of today's class. I've got coaching tier next, which is my very last coaching tier session with my coaching tier members. But just to let you know that Ben's Happy Hips Challenge starts on Monday. It's not a live class on Monday, but you're going to get the first email come through with the hips classes on Monday. He's also sending a welcome email this Friday. So if you'd like to do the Happy Hips Challenge live, where you get the programmed emails, then please do sign up for it. Always check your weekly email on a Monday. Anything you ever need any information about is contained within that weekly email on a Monday. You don't need to look anywhere else. So it's got discount codes, it's got links and information on how to sign up. So just please read those because they give you everything that you need. And then if not, you can also find them within the community forum. There's a section called discount codes for workshops. So sign up for that if you're interested, but all of the classes will be uploaded to the software as well. And then just to remind you that there's no live class next week. Unfortunately, our guest teacher that we had planned has cancelled, and it's after I have a music festival. So I'm not doing what I did last year when the guest teacher also cancelled on me last minute and I was in no fit state and did an absolutely dreadful class. So I don't want to put you through that. And instead, what I have done is I filmed the deluxe routine from the Egoscue book. So that is quite a tough, quite a long class, and you'll have to let me know how you find it. But that will get emailed to you next Monday and will also be on the software next Monday as well. And I think that's it. And then actually, no, one final thing. This week's is my last coaching tier session with my coaching tier members. So starting in August, when it's my live class on Mondays, I will be upping the amount of members Q&As that I do. So it just means that there'll be members Q&As basically after every single one of my classes, except when we have a guest teacher class, there won't be. So hopefully that comes as good news. And thank you, Kelly. Thank you for being here. And yeah, lots of love to everybody. And I'll see my coaching tier members in just one tick. I've got to swap meetings, but goodbye, lots of love.